The night was quiet, too quiet inside. The underground lab, the lights flickered like they always did. No one noticed the sound at first, a soft hum in the walls. A low vibration under the floors. The guards were asleep at their desks. The scientists were in the break room sipping bitter coffee, and she was alone in the back chamber staring at the strange alien device again. It looked like a black stone cube, smooth, cold, but it pulsed when you touched it. She had been studying it for months. Everyone said it was just junk, just broken alien tech from a crashed ship found in the desert, but she knew it was more. It had patterns inside. Energy signatures she had never seen before. It reacted to brain waves, to thought itself. She could feel. Watching her, then the lights went out, all of them. Total darkness filled the lab. The air turned heavy, the hum grew louder. She backed away from the cube and reached for her tablet. But the screen was dead too, crashed glass shattering shouts then. Silence again. She didn't scream. She crouched low behind the metal table. Her breath was shaky. She heard footsteps, not human footsteps, something lighter, quieter, crawling along the walls, and ceiling red. Lights flickered back on emergency mode in. The red glow, she saw shadows moving fast. Inhuman shapes, long arms, no eyes, they moved like ghosts. The lab was under attack. She didn't run. She moved toward the back door, her fingers shaking as she typed the override code. It didn't work. The system was locked out. Someone had hacked it. She turned and saw them, aliens, four of them, tall, thin, bodies covered in dark armor. They didn't speak. They moved straight to the cube. One reached out and touched it. The cube lit up bright blue for a second. The whole room glowed, and then it was gone. The cube disappeared in a flash of light, and so did they. Silence returned. She sat on the floor, shaking. The cube was gone. The others rushed in minutes later, security scientists. No one believed her at first. Until they saw the footage, until they saw the missing object, they called for backup. They shut the lab down, but it was already too late. She tried to tell them what it meant, that the cube was a control key, that it linked to something larger, something dangerous. They laughed. They told her she was overreacting, that the aliens were probably scavengers, not part of an empire, not a threat, but she knew the truth. She had seen the symbols etched inside the cube, and she had translated part of it. She found a name, not of a person, but of a place, a central node, a command center. She believed the cube could control an entire alien network. If someone understood how to use it that night, she sat alone in her quarters, looking at the last scan of the cube. She saw something no one else had noticed, a countdown numbers changing faster now, and a signal going out to space her. Hands trembled as she followed the signal path. It was aimed at a sector far beyond the known colonies, a place humans were told not to go, empty, dead, but maybe not. She stared at the blinking dot on her screen. She knew where they were going. She knew what the cube was for, and she knew one more thing: they would come back, and when they did, Earth would not be ready. The alarms still flashed in her head. The silence still rang in her ears. She couldn't forget how fast it all happened, how easily they got in, took what they wanted, and left. But something told her it wasn't a random attack. They knew where to go. They knew what to take. They wanted the cube, not for study, not for knowledge, but for power. She didn't sleep that night. She started making plans if no one would believe her. She would act alone. She still had the scan data, the energy signature, the partial code she cracked. She still had her mind, and she was going to use it. Asterisk. She stood in the briefing room while they laughed around her, men in suits and uniforms talking over one another. They called her paranoid. They said the aliens were just thieves. They said no empire existed out there. She watched them with calm eyes, eyes that had seen more than they ever would. She tried to explain again. The cube was not junk. It was ancient. It held systems inside. It had a power signal that could activate things from far away. She had followed the data trail. She had mapped the frequency it sent when it vanished, and it was aimed at a dark region of space no one explored. They still laughed. One man clapped her shoulder like she was a child, he told her to take a vacation, clear her head. The others agreed. They dismissed her from the project, removed her access, shut her out, but it was already too late. The message had gone through. Not just from the cube, but from her, because someone had been watching. Not a human, not someone in the room, but something orbiting Earth, a hidden probe, small and quiet, and listening to her every word, every file she touched. Every pattern she cracked it was sending her work to someone else, and far across space in the throne chamber of a shadow empire. Her name was spoken aloud for the first time. The empire had watched humans grow. They saw Earth's wars, its machines, its arrogance. They believed humans were reckless but limited to emotional. too divided, not worth. The effort of control until a human scientist did what none of their top minds could. She had touched the key, understood part of its code, and almost unlocked it fully. Now they were afraid the Empress of the Empire ordered her name entered. In the red record, it meant she was dangerous, more dangerous than a ship, more dangerous than a fleet, because she was one human who could think on Earth. She packed her bags and left the city quietly. No more labs, no more begging to be heard, she went. Dark changed her name, used old contacts to move across borders. No one noticed, no one cared. But others did. Aliens in disguise began to appear near places she stayed. Shops closed early when she entered. Drones flew overhead longer than normal. Her tablet lit up on its own at night. Sometimes she heard voices through the walls. Voices that didn't sound human. She moved again and again. Each time she got farther from Earth's control. Each time she got closer to the stars, she met a man in bar full of off-worlders. He wore a long coat and carried a ship's key on his belt. He had the look of someone who had seen too much. She offered him a deal. He could name his price. All she wanted was transport to the outer systems. He asked her why, leaned in and whispered something, just 5 words, and his face went pale. He nodded once, said he would take her, but warned her the Empire had eyes everywhere. She said she knew. She said they already feared her. And that made her stronger than they ever expected. They left that night in a beat-up ship, held together by wire and hope. The engines groaned, but the stars came closer. She sat in silence, staring at the data files she brought with her. She saw the same symbol again and again, a spiral. Wrapped in flame, the mark of the Empire. They were real, they were old, and they were watching her. The pilot asked if she had a plan. She said she did, but she needed time. She needed to see what the cube was connected to, and she needed to find the empires. He laughed, not because it was funny, but because he believed her, and that was rare. They jumped through a wormhole and entered deep space. No patrols, no laws, only stars and silence. Behind them, Earth still laughing at the idea of a galactic empire, still blind to the storm coming, still thinking she was just a scientist with strange ideas, but far away the Empire moved. Ships realigned, codes changed, orders were given. Find her, arrest her, stop her mind before it breaks the code, because deep inside the Empire, they knew something terrible, something they never wanted to admit. That one human mind, sharp, fast, free, could do what their entire empire could know to think them. The stars looked peaceful from a distance, but they hid secrets, old secrets, dangerous ones. She sat by the window of the ship, watching light trails stretch across the black, her face calm, but her mind racing. They were not safe, not here, not anywhere. The pilot said they would lay low in a mining belt, a quiet place where no one asked questions. He said it would be fine. But she knew better. The Empire was watching. She could feel it, not with her eyes or ears, but in the silence, in the way stations turned away their signal, and the way messages never reached them, and the way ships nearby drifted just a little too close and lingered just a little too long. They docked at a forgotten rock called Sector 9. It was not a planet, just a floating city. Metal and smoke miners came and went. Traders sold junk lights, flickered air, smelled like rust. She kept her hood up, her eyes low. She moved through the crowds like a shadow, looking for a signal, a clue, anything. In a dark room lit by blue fire, she found an old machine broker. He spoke in broken Earth words, told her he had seen a ship, a strange one with a symbol she described. A spiral in flame. Her heart skipped. She asked where it went. He pointed toward the edge of the sector, where the stars vanished into black. The pilot warned her again, said it was dangerous, said it was madness, but she nodded. She knew the risk. She also knew time was running out. They left that night, no goodbye, no light. As they flew, she looked over the data again. The patterns were clear. Now the cube had linked to something bigger, something old, and it had woken it 3 days into deep space. The ship's systems began to fail. At first, just the lights, then the gravity, then the engines stuttered, not natural. Not random. She checked the systems. A code was inside, a virus not human-made. It had her name in it. The Empire was not just watching, it was inside the ship. They cut power and drifted in silence. No lights, no signals, nothing, hoping to disappear, but they were not alone. A shadow moved across the stars. Huge, silent, no engines, no lights. Just shape and fear. A hunter ship. She whispered to the pilot to stay calm, to not move, to not speak, to not think too loud. It drifted past. So close she could see its skin, black and pulsing, like it was alive, symbols glowing faintly across its sides. She knew those symbols. She had seen them in the cube. She held her breath. The pilot gripped the controls, one noise, one spark, and they would be gone, but it passed the ship. Moved on and vanished. They did not speak for hours when they did. They both knew what it meant. She was not running from soldiers. She was not hiding from spies. She was hunted by machines built to erase minds. The pilot asked again why they were chasing her, why the Empire cared so much about one person, one scientist, no weapons, no army. She told him the truth because she had understood something. A design, a flaw, a way into the Empire's main system. She had not meant to find it. It just appeared while studying the cube, and now the Empire knew she knew they were afraid of her, not because of what she could do, but because of what she might do next. She stared out the window again. Into the dark, she was tired, but she was not afraid they wanted her to. Be scared to run, to hide, to give up, but she would not, because she had found something else in the Data A message, hidden beneath layers of alien code, not from the Empire, but from someone else, a voice calling for help from inside the Empire itself, a rebel. Signal a spark, still alive. She made a choice that night. No more running. It was time to go toward the storm. Not away, it was time to outthink the hunters and bring the Empire to its knees. Asterisk. The stars blinked outside the ship, like quiet eyes watching from the dark. She sat alone in the lower deck, surrounded by scattered screens and data pads. Her fingers moved slowly over the last scan of the cube. The symbols were no longer just shapes. They were language commands, blueprints. She leaned closer. The cube had not only sent a signal, it had opened something buried deep inside the code. She found a map, not of planets, not of space, but of power lines of energy stretched from system to system, each node glowing with the Empire's mark. She followed the lines, and at the center, a place not named, not labeled, just one symbol, pulsing in red. She tapped it once, and the screen glitched. A sharp tone pierced the air, then silence. Her hands froze, then moved faster. She was not just looking at a map anymore. She was looking at the core of the Empire's command grid, and she had found a whole A backdoor hidden in the oldest part of the code. Left behind by whoever built the system before the Empire claimed it. The code was incomplete, but it was relay single. Signaled through that whole time exactly, could short out command for every ship. Every drone, every listening station tied to that grid, not forever. Just 10 minutes, but 10 minutes was everything. 10 minutes could change a war. She called the pilot, showed him the data. His face turned pale. He asked how she found it. She said it was always there, waiting. The cube had shown her where to look. He asked if she was sure. She nodded. She had never been more sure of anything, but the access point was not nearby. It was not safe. It was deep in Empire space, inside a forgotten relay station built before the Empire rose. Unwatched, unsecured, but only if they moved fast. They set a course that night. No talk, no fear, just motion as they flew. She studied the last pieces of the code, each symbol, each trigger. The cube had taught her more than she expected. It wasn't just a tool. It was a guide. She now understood how the Empire thought, how they built, how they hid, and how to outsmart them. They reached the edge of a dead zone, a place no ships traveled, a region marked dangerous by old warnings, mines, magnetic storms, broken satellites, but she saw through the noise. The relay station floated in the dark. Dead cold, perfect, docked-in silence guns ready systems. She stepped onto the old floor and felt the past under her feet. This place had once connected thousands of worlds. Now it was empty. Waiting, she found the main core and powered it up. It groaned to life. Old lights blinked, metal hummed the code. Entered cleanly. It fit like a key. She watched the network light up across her screen. Old channels, old doors, still alive. The system asked for confirmation. One more command, one signal. A pilot stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. He asked one. Last time if she was ready, she said she was, because this was not about revenge. This was about truth, about showing the galaxy that even the biggest empire could be touched, that even the most powerful machine had cracks, and that one human, one mind could find them. The stars outside the window spun slowly as the ship glided through silent space. Nothing seemed wrong. No alarms, no warnings, no reason to be afraid. She sat at the back of the ship with the lights dim and the data screen open. Her fingers moved quickly. Lines of alien code flowed past symbols she had studied for weeks. Now they were starting to make sense. The pilot stood nearby, watching her work. He leaned on the wall, arms crossed, pretending to relax, but something in his eyes had changed. She noticed. She always noticed. He asked about the signal again, the rebel voice. The one she found hidden inside the cube's last transmission. He wanted to know where it came from. She gave him part of the answer. Not all she wanted to trust him, but trust had a price out here. They reached a small outpost built into an asteroid, old, abandoned, quiet. She said she needed to link into its deep array. The only place nearby strong enough to send the signal she needed. He agreed too quickly. They docked without problems. No one came to greet them. The place was empty. Dust floated in the air like snow in slow motion. She unpacked her tools and got to work. Her heart beat steady, calm, focused. The signal needed to be perfect. If the rebel voice was real, it would. Hear her, but behind her the pilot made a call, not with words, not with a device, but with thought. Tay, behind his eye, lit up, connected to the void. Connected to them. He told them where she was, what she had found, how close she was to unlocking the core. He didn't want to, not really, but the Empire had him long ago. They planted the chip when he was young, promised to erase his debt. Promised freedom, but there is no freedom from the Empire. She finished the final code string and took a deep breath. The signal was ready. She smiled slightly, a rare thing, and then the airlock opened. She turned fast, eyes wide. Soldiers. 3 of them. Same as before, tall armor like liquid metal. No faces, only dark masks and silent steps. She looked at the pilot. He looked. Oh, the betrayal burned more than fear. She didn't scream. She didn't beg. She ran. She grabbed the small data drive and sprinted down the corridor. Lights exploded around her. The soldiers followed. Fast, efficient, but not fast enough. She ducked into a narrow maintenance shaft and climbed. The sound of metal boots rang below. Her hands bled. Her lungs burned. But she kept going. She reached the reactor core of the station. Hot, unstable, but full of energy. She pulled open a panel and plugged in her device. The station lights flickered. One more command, one signal burst. Just one. The soldiers reached the room. Weapons raised. She hit send. A pulse exploded outward. Not a weapon, not a bomb, but a message that shot through subspace, invisible and loud far away. Someone would hear it. The soldiers moved in. She raised her hands, calm again. Her heart steady. The leader stepped forward. He reached for her and stopped. The pilot entered the room behind them. Gun shaking in his hand, he said one word enough to soldiers. Turned, but not fast enough. He fired once, then twice. Chaos. She grabbed a loose pipe and struck the last one from behind. Silence. Returned. The pilot dropped the gun. Fell to his knees. Said he was sorry. Said he had no choice. She didn't answer. She just stared, then turned and took the drive. They left the station together, both broken in different ways. She didn't know if the signal was received. She didn't know if the rebel voice was real, but the Empire did now. They knew she would not stop. They knew she had sent the Callan somewhere in the darkness. Someone answered asterisk. The ship drifted near the edge of a dying star, its light cold and cracked like broken glass in space. No signals, no voices, no ships. Just silence. She stood inside the control room staring at the old station that floated nearby. It was forgotten, covered in dust. Its metal walls scarred by time and meteors, but it held what she needed, the last working link to the ancient relay. System built long before the Empire rose. If she could reach it, if she could send her signal through its core, the Empire would feel it. She breathed slowly. Her hands wrapped around the small drive she had carried since the betrayal. It held the code, the key, the answer. The pilot watched her from behind. He said nothing, his face marked by guilt and pain. But he followed. They docked without welcome. No lights, no systems. The place was sleeping. She stepped inside and felt the weight of the past old. Screens flickered when she touched the main console. Dust lifted into the air like faded memories. The code still worked. Barely, she began the sequence step by step, layer by layer, each part of the code linked to another. The patterns were complex, but her mind moved faster. The signal would pass through the station, then through the Empire's hidden channels. It would reach the core systems, the heart of control where every ship, every drone, every watcher drew power and orders. Signal would not destroy them. It would stop them just for 10 minutes enough. For rebels to strike enough, for others to rise enough to show that the Empire could be touched, but the station had eyes as she activated the final switch. A light blinked above. The Empire knew they were coming. She turned to the pilot and nodded. He sealed the docking bay, locked the outer hatch. They were inside now. No way out, not unless they finished the station began to shake. Not from damage, but from movement. It was lifting itself, reaching out across the stars. The relay core lit up with blue. Fire energy pulsed through its veins. It had not spoken in years now. It roared. The code flowed. Her fingers danced numbers, symbols, commands. Then, warning a breach, they had arrived in Empire Cutter. Sharp, fast, merciless, it tore through space like a silent blade. She had minutes, maybe less. The station's shields cracked under the first shot. Air hissed from the walls. The lights dimmed, but her hands kept moving. The pilot grabbed tools, sealed holes, held the walls together with fire and wire. She reached the last command line, typed the final string. The screen turned white, then black. Then the signal sent a pulse, raced across the stars, faster than light. Faster than thought. It hit the Empire's command net like a wave of fire. Every ship, every drone, every eye blinked, then went dark. She fell to her knees, breathing hard, sweat dripping, her body shaking. But she smiled. It worked. The Empire was blind. Death paralyzed. For 10 minutes, 10 real minutes, enough for chaos to begin across the galaxy. Rebel cells moved. Hidden fleets launched, chains were broken. The cutter outside stopped firing. Its lights flickered. Its weapons lowered inside. The two of them stared at the silent screens. No alarms, no movement, only silence. But it was not peace, it was the beginning. She looked at the pilot. He looked at her. They had done it. One signal, one shot, not with guns. Not with ships, but with thought, with will, with a mind that never stopped. The station shook again, systems failing. Overload building, they ran fire behind them, sparks. Ahead they reached the ship, launched into the void, as the station cracked open and vanished into light. No words were said, none were needed. She looked back once at the place where she changed the war, then forward toward what came next, because the Empire had been touched and nothing would ever be the same again. The stars burned brighter now, but it was not because of light. It was because something had changed, something deep, something permanent. She floated in silence aboard this small ship, watching the news spread across the galaxy, rebel signals unmarked. Channels, even Empire broadcasts, now filled with static and fear. The great systems had failed. 10 minutes of silence, 10 minutes without commands, 10 minutes without control. That was all it took. Entire fleets lost formation. Outposts fell quiet. Mines froze. In panic, ships collided. Troops abandoned their posts, and the people saw it. They saw that the Empire was not invincible, that its machines could fall, that its voice could be silenced, that it could bleed. They saw her name, the woman who sent the signal, the human mind that cracked the code, the scientist the Empire once mocked and forgot now. They remembered the Empress herself spoke in rage. She demanded her capture. She ordered every hunter, every spy, every drone to find her, erase her mind from existence, but it was too late because her voice had already spread. Her message had been copied, sent across shadow nets, carried in whispers. Sung in taverns, etched into walls of prison cells and rebel bases, they called her the thinker, the ghost of circuits, the mind that broke the Empire. But she did not want titles. She wanted truth. She wanted freedom. Not just for Earth, but for all species crushed under the Empire's rule. She knew it was only the beginning. 10 minutes was not a war won, but it was a spark, and sparks become fire. She and the pilot traveled from world to world, helping where they could, staying quiet but never still. She taught others what she learned, how to think like code, how to fight without bullets, how to see the Empire's lies for what they were, more joined her, not with banners, not with armies, but with belief. One day, a message reached her through an old rebel contact. High Command, I had broken free from Empire control. It was asking. For her, it wanted to help. She met it in a hidden station wrapped in ice. It was strange, beautiful, half machine, half dream. It told her she had changed something in the network, opened a doorway no one could close. Other minds were waking now, other systems. Learning to question, even inside the Empire's core, she realized that then this was not a war of ships. This was a war of thought, and she was winning. The Empire struck back with fury. They destroyed planets, burned archives, chased rebels into black holes, but every time they silenced one voice, 3 more rose. Every time they rebuilt, she found another way, and they could not stop her. Because she was not just one person anymore. She was an idea planted deep in the code of every system, a whisper that said you are not alone, you can break free, you can fight even if you have no weapon, no fleet, no army. If you have a mind, you have everything. Years passed. Her face became a myth, her name a legend. Some said she died in a final battle above a dying sun. Some said she became part of the code itself. Some said she was still out there, still thinking, still watching. But the truth was simpler. She lived quietly on a green moon far from any map. She walked through forests, talked to machines that once feared or taught young minds how to question, how to see. She did not need to fight anymore because the fire she started never stopped to cross. The galaxy lights burned in places once cold. Voices rose in places once silent. And the Empire, the great unstoppable. Empire was now just a shadow all because one human scientist refused to stop thinking, refused to give up, refused to be silent, and the stars would never forget her.